Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing? You doing good?
Yep.
Splendid. It is so good to see you.
Oh no, it's good to see you too.
So yeah, we've got about kind of 20 minutes or so to have a bit of a chat
Okay.
and just catch up a little bit, really. So
Yeah.
for the sake of people watching that have no idea who you are, other than some man that I'm talking to, just
hmm
let's start with who are you and what are you doing in life currently?
So my name is Jake Ithurburn, and me and Amy met a little over 10 years ago. Crazy that
That's
it's been that long. We both did a school called YWAM, which is like a missions sort of school, and we did ours in New Zealand. So we met there, and have kind of stayed in touch over the years just through text and Facebook and all that stuff. But yeah, so I did that school a little over 10 years ago. And then since then, I've been kind of just working and doing some music stuff. So I've been doing, I'm a songwriter, and I've been kind of pursuing that in over the last 10 years, and just been writing a bunch of songs and releasing music. And currently it's under a project called Brawley, which I believe is an old term for an umbrella in the UK.
Yeah,
If I'm right,
we would say brolly.
Brawley. Um, so yeah, I've been doing that for a while. I've put out some music over the years and have done a bit of touring, and it's been fun. It's been kind of a grind for sure. But I love writing songs and making music and producing and all that. So definitely has been enjoyable. But currently, I live in Sacramento, California. This is kind of the area I grew up. It's Northern California, and still doing music under Brawley, which is kind of like my own project. And I have a bunch of songs that I've recently finished up, almost an album's worth, that I'm planning on releasing at some point, either later this year or early next year. Um, and yeah, apart from that music, I also lead worship at a church called Jesus Culture. It's north of Sacramento. And I've kind of been a part of that crew for about 4 years now. And yeah, started just kind of joined the church and got involved with the worship team, and then started leading worship. And then currently I've been doing a bit more like writing with some of the community here. Um, Writing worship songs like for our church, but also like potentially to put out. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I was shocked. Not shocked, maybe isn't the right word, but I was quite surprised when I downloaded the new Jesus Culture album and then I heard you singing back at me. I was like,
Yeah.
I know this voice. That was quite novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I've looked up to you as a songwriter for the whole time that we've known. I remember kind of sitting with you in a
Mhm.
field in New Zealand and just listening to you kind of process and kind of
Mhm.
come up with lyrics. And I think that how you write is really inspiring. And I love um, the way that your personal writing in terms of like your brolly stuff and
Mhm.
your spiritual stuff, they're quite connected. You've got quite
Yeah.
a style,
Mhm.
and it's good. How, because I know that when we chatted the last, it was about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you were
Mhm.
very much decided that you wanted to do the secular route, and that
Mhm.
because you guys were doing the band a little bit more, it was a bit more of a
Mhm.
band feel, wasn't it? how
Yeah.
how did you decide to kind of pursue both elements of that, and kind of how did God call you into what's currently happening?
Yeah. It's a good question. That's definitely a story. I've always I've always, since I was young and in high school, like kind of been involved with like leading worship at churches. And I've always like really loved that. That's kind of like my roots in music has, started playing in church. Like I started playing drums in church first, and then started leading worship. And so that was always like something that I really enjoyed and found a lot of like, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like fulfillment in. And But I also have always like really loved just writing music that kind of doesn't really have a whole lot to do with like the church or um, praising the Lord. Like I've always just wanted to write songs that were kind of about just my own experience with life. And sometimes those songs have nothing to do with God. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's kind of like a mix, it's just like, thoughts and ideas and stuff you go through as a human being. So I've always just tried, I kind of pursued the band thing for a long time and actually didn't lead. I was kind of leading worship at various churches here and there during that time period, but I was definitely focusing more on like being a songwriter and pursuing my own thing within, with my band. There was like 5 of us and we were kind of doing that together. And I yeah, so about 5 years ago, I was pursuing that pretty full on, and it was like I was just not going. I was kind of going through a hard time personally. Like, uh, I ended up making a decision to like move back home. Like all of us band members had moved out to um, Denver, Colorado, and we were living out there, and we had some like pretty good things like ahead of us. It felt like we were like gaining traction and had made some good connections and things were kind of picking up. But I was kind of struggling with like some depression stuff and um not even so much depression. It was more of just like I felt like I had maybe experienced like some sort of relational pain at some point growing up that I just never really dealt with. And so it kind of just like was festering over the years. And I was so just like pursuing this dream to be like a great songwriter and to have my music out there for the world to hear. And I hadn't really taken care of like some of my personal issues. So I think more than anything, it wasn't so much like a decision of like, oh, I'm going to, quit doing this band thing and go pursue something else, which ended up being, more of like the worship stuff. It wasn't so much like a decision like that for me. It felt more of like, I don't really know why, but I have to stop doing this right now because I need to like take care of myself. Um, and so ended up moving back home and, at that point, the band was kind of done. And it was a really hard time for me because I had invested so many years and so much of like I think some of my identity was even like caught up in that band and the pursuit of like that dream. So when that was gone, it was definitely a hard season for me of like, regret of like, was this a bad choice? Did I ruin something? And so I actually didn't write songs for a minute, for probably like a year. I just like didn't write any songs. And because every time I picked up a guitar, I was like sad and like, just like lies were filling my head of like, you ruined your potential career. Anyway, like all that stuff. And then I got involved when I moved back home, I got involved with Jesus Culture. And for me, it was like, not so much like, oh, I really just want to be a worship leader. I want to be a worship artist. It was just, I just needed friends and like community. And so met a lot of really awesome people there. And yeah, I think I just like, it was like one of the best times of my life because I think I let go of something that I was chasing, like a dream that I was chasing more than I was pursuing relationships and more than I was pursuing wholeness and God. Um, and so it was a good time for me to just kind of like sit back and rediscover other things that I love about life more than just writing songs. And through worship, it was like a really healing time for me. And so yeah, now I'm like 4 years later, I picked up the Brawley stuff again, went on a couple tours, put out a couple EPs, and have been like kind of still doing both, like still writing a bunch. And now they're kind of like two separate, they're like, it's the same, coming from the same soul obviously, but it's kind of feels like right now the Brawley stuff that I'm doing, my own music, is kind of my creative outlet. And um and it kind of fills that need, it plays that role in my life. And then the worship stuff is more of like it feels good, like it feels more like I'm just serving like our church. And it feels more like a collaboration. Like even the songwriting feels like, okay, it's not coming from so much of a place of like what do I want to say as an artist, more of like, what do we want to write that's going to help our church engage in a worship song and really connect with God. And so it has a lot less to do with like I feel less personal investment in the song. Like it doesn't feel like as much as like my baby, like Brawley does. It's like, oh, this is my soul and this is my kind of creativity. But this is more like a collaborative effort of like, you know, um, the purpose is just, for me, the purpose is just um, creating a song and worship that like helps our church engage in something together, that's like universally relatable and easy to like worship to.
Mm.
So
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that it's good to see the difference between the two in terms of your creative process. But it's really
mhm,
interesting what you said about, I felt like I was chasing after this thing rather than chasing after God. And I know that like from chatting with you that something shifted and that you were kind of pursuing who God was more than what this dream was. So
mhm.
what in terms of like discipleship, and when you say I started chasing after God again, what does that look like for you?
Mhm. Well, for me, the biggest shift was because I'd always was pursuing God, even in when I was really going after music, um, I was still very much like pursuing my relationship with God. But I think the two things that shifted during that time was, one, I had to take a look at what I was placing my identity in, and like a lot of that was in music and my career or my talents or my passions. I was placing a lot of like my worth and how I viewed myself in that success or in the success of all that stuff. And I had to just kind of strip that back and kind of find my identity only in God again, and only in um, who He says that I am, regardless of like music. Because I kind of came to this place. I was like, well, tomorrow I could get in a freak accident and my hands could get chopped off and I could never do music again. So if that happened, like what would I be? Like, would I just be like, I'm nothing anymore? Or I had to just kind of redefine my identity. And, I had to be like, okay, music is something that I love, but it's not who I am. And so that was a part of it, was refining that identity apart from what I do, was a big shift that happened in me. And the other shift was just relationship. Like, I think that my relationship with God for a lot of years was kind of felt like this like Lone Ranger thing, where I was like, it's me and God and against the world kind of thing. Like, and I didn't go to church for a long time. I was kind of like, oh, I wouldn't say I was over church, but it was just like, there was a lot of things about church that felt kind of religious and felt like, oh, I can just pursue God outside of this. Like my view of church was like, oh, it's just my relationship with God. That's good enough. But I actually found that when I kind of came back and was a part of Jesus culture, even just as a church, like even just going to church on Sunday and like hearing a message and being in relationship with people and doing that frequently was like really, really good for me, because it kind of like revealed a lot of my negative feelings about church in general, and how to let that stuff go and like just take in the community side of like of what church is. And I don't know, that was just really good for me. So I would say bringing people into my process, bringing community into my process, and finding learning how to find my identity in God rather than what I do, were the two major shifts, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I think so. The context that we met in was very much that, wasn't it? There was a bunch of people all saying we want to chase after Jesus together, and that
Mm-hmm.
some of the richest times of my discipleship were in that
Mm-hmm.
context, because it wasn't about the fact that we were in a beautiful place and doing crazy things. It was
Mm-hmm.
about, there was a bunch of people to do that with, and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of shared experience. I think that's an interesting idea of, actually, a big part of discipleship is the people that you're going somewhere with, and it isn't that, I like that phrase, the Lone Ranger thing. um,
Mm-hmm.
and how often do we hear people go, it's just me and Jesus. That's
Yeah.
kind of all that matters. But having
Yeah.
people around you to walk through stuff with, like you mentioned, like the mental health stuff and kind of
Hmm.
disappointment with the band and stuff like that. Having people to walk through that stuff with is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think like I just realized being a part of a team is way more fulfilling than doing anything by yourself, So like, um, for me coming back and being a part of this church Jesus culture felt like kind of being a part of a team and doing something with people, having a goal with other people, felt really good. Like kind of, yeah, same as like, being in YWAM. That was another thing that was awesome about it, was just like having a common goal with a group of people that you're getting to like experience life with and get to know like on a personal level. So that's kind of what it felt like, coming back to that. And I just realized how much I needed that in my life. So
No, that's good. So if you had like to share some wisdom on something to kind of impact our walk with God. So the youth group that I'm part of,
hmm
lead. If you could kind of give them something that you've learned,
hmm
that's impacted your walk with God, what would it be?
oh man. uh I think one, just being like learning how to be very honest and vulnerable, um, and with everything, like with yourself, um, with God, like with your, dialogue with God, like whatever that looks like for you, like, whether that's when you're reading, you know, the Bible, or when you're just kind of in your car, like, or on a walk, just kind of talking to him, like being very honest and not trying to like say the right thing or pray the right prayer. Because I think for me, sometimes I kind of get in that mindset of like, I need to phrase this in the right way where God understands what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Where it's like, really, it's just being honest. Also honest with people and vulnerable. I think for me, that's, yeah, just the biggest thing that I've learned is like, you need people. I think so much of what God wants to heal in you and grow in you is he does it through other people more than anything else. Like, I think that, it's really important to like seek the Lord, like that secret place with God, where it's like you have those special experiences and encounters with the Holy Spirit where he like actually reveals something to you, and it's really special. And though I've had those moments like throughout my life, and it's, they're like marking moments where like you're like, oh yeah, I feel like God really taught me this in a moment and spoke this to me, or I felt his love in like a really powerful way. And it kind of, those are moments where it's like they definitely bring strength to you, and they're things that like foundationally you can like look back on, and no matter like what hard time you're kind of working through, they kind of like sustain you a bit. But so that paired with relationship and like every day, like when you're going through stuff, like finding those people in your life who you can be vulnerable with and talk about things with, like honestly, and um yeah, that community and those friendships I think are super important with like relationship with God. So that's the biggest thing that I've learned, is just like how to like sustaining quality friendships, I think is more important than almost anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in fostering those friendships and investing in those friendships, if you're then chasing after Jesus together, there's that
Hmm.
kind of shared experience, isn't there? But
Hmm.
equally, it's not just about the church stuff, is it? It's the
Hmm.
who you have a coffee with at a weekend.
Hmm.
It's who you take the dog for a walk with. It's having people in your life that are for you and with you, and that you can
Yeah.
be for and with, and
Yeah.
kind of sharing community, which is kind of what you were saying before about it wasn't about the
Mhm.
music, it was about me being Jake and allowing people to get alongside me and around me as just Jake, as opposed to Jake with this set of skills. um,
Yeah.
but no, I'm I'm really excited that the Brolly stuff's it's happening. You know that we've talked about your music for a long
Mm.
time. I remember being sat at by the map in the old classroom, talking to you about Benjamin Francis Leftwich, and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, you're going to love this guy," and
Yeah.
chatting about music. And then I remember getting a message from you saying, "Hey, guess who's supporting this guy on his US tour?"
Yeah.
So it's exciting that doors are opening um, in an exciting way, but also that hasn't. It's not a it's not that that's not your driving force anymore.
Mhm.
You've kind of accepted that this is who I am and this is what I'm about, and then all of this other stuff is just good fun. My identity's not wrapped up in it,
Yeah.
which is cool. But
Yeah.
next time you're in the UK, you'll have to
I'll
come.
hit you up.
You'll have, you'll have to come and visit us. I'm pretty sure that we'd love a guest worship leader.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It's been a long
There-
time since we've done worship together.
Yeah, because I know Jesus Culture has they have like connections in Manchester. They go there a lot. There's a pastor there called Phil Smith he's super cool. He's a really nice guy, and they do stuff. They kind of collaborate with that church quite a bit and with Phil. And so, yeah, who knows? Maybe like once the world starts to kind of go back to normal at some point, next time I'm over there, that'd be sweet. You'll have
Yeah,
to let me know.
it'd be great to see you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for giving up your afternoon
Yeah.
to chat. I've missed your face.
I know. Good to see
Let's
you.
not leave it so long next time, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, cheers, Jake.
All right. See ya.